Okay, so let's dive into this trade war thing, huh? Everyone's talking about it, but how does it actually affect Bitcoin and crypto?
Right. Well, we've got a ton of news and even some social media posts to go through today.
Wow, sounds intense.
It is.
What exactly happened to set this all off?
Well, President Trump hit Canada and Mexico with a 25% tariff on goods.
Oof, 25%.
Yep, and China got hit with a 10% tariff.
Okay, so that's a lot of tariffs, but why?
Officially, it's about immigration and drug traffic in particular, but he's using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, so...
Okay, but why should our listeners care? Most of them are into crypto, right?
Yeah.
So how does this affect them?
Well, these three countries are like the U.S.'s biggest trading partners.
Oh, right.
So we're talking about prices going up on everything, avocados, cars, even electronics.
So basically inflation.
Basically. And that always makes people nervous about traditional investments. And when people get nervous, they pull out of riskier stuff like crypto.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, this could easily become a global trade war where every country is just slapping tariffs on each other.
Yeah, tit for tat. Nobody wins with that.
Exactly. It's uncertainty like that really hurts businesses and makes investors go risk off, which means they dump assets like crypto that are seen as more volatile.
So Bitcoin and other cryptos are getting hit even though they're not directly related to these tariffs at all.
Exactly. And to make it even more complicated, Bitcoin sometimes acts like what they call a risk-on asset, at least in the short term.
So if the stock market tanks, Bitcoin's probably going down with it.
Right. And don't forget, there's already tariffs on Chinese goods from those trade wars a couple of years ago. So this is just adding fuel to the fire.
Okay, so we've got rising prices, a potential trade war, and a market that hates uncertainty. So how are Canada and Mexico taking this?
They're not happy. Canada's already announced a 25% retaliatory tariff on $155 billion worth of U.S. products.
Whoa, what kind of products?
Everything beer maple syrup, appliances, even cars.
Wow, so this is a serious escalation.
Yeah. Mexico hasn't announced the specifics of their retaliation yet, but they're definitely not just going to sit there and take it.
What about China?
China's being more careful. They're saying they'll file a complaint with the WTO and take necessary countermeasures.
So this whole thing could blow up pretty fast, huh?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Mexico actually overtook China as the top U.S. trading partner for goods last year.
That's right.
So these tariffs on Mexico are a really big deal.
They are. The economic ties between these countries are incredibly complex. Disrupting them can have huge consequences across the board.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. One move triggers a chain reaction across the entire global economy, and the crypto market is right there in the middle of it.
Okay, so we've laid out the situation, rising prices, potential trade war, and a whole lot of uncertainty. But what does this actually mean for someone who's holding Bitcoin? What should they be doing?
That's the question everybody wants answered, and it's not simple. So in the next part, let's get into what this trade war could actually mean for your crypto portfolio.
All right, so we've got this trade war brewing, and everyone's kind of freaking out. But let's talk about what it means for the average person who's got some Bitcoin or other crypto. What should they be doing?
Well, the first thing to remember is that we're probably going to see a lot more volatility, price swings up and down as this whole thing plays out.
So like a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. And how you ride that roller coaster depends on, your risk tolerance and what your long-term goals are.
Right.
If you're a long-term holder, like you believe in Bitcoin for the long haul, then these price dips might actually be a good thing.
Oh, how so?
Well, you can buy more at a lower price.
Kind of like a Bitcoin sale.
Yeah, I guess you could think of it that way as long as you're confident that Bitcoin will eventually go back up.
That makes sense. But what if you're more of a trader? Someone who's buying and selling all the time.
For them, it's trickier. This kind of volatility can mean big profits, but it also means bigger risks.
Yeah, you got to be careful not to get wiped out.
Right. You need to really know what you're doing, have a solid strategy, and be able to read the market sentiment.
So don't just panic and sell everything when the price drops.
Exactly. Stay calm and think long term. But for everyone, really, the most important thing is to stay informed. Don't just bury your head in the sand and hope this all goes away.
Right. Knowledge is power, especially when things are this crazy.
Exactly. Keep an eye on the news, read analyses from people you trust, and try to get a sense of how this trade war is likely to play out.
So we need to understand how this is all going to affect the crypto market.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Some analysts are actually saying that this trade war could be good for crypto in the long run.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems kind of counterintuitive. Isn't this whole thing supposed to be bad for the economy?
Well, the thinking is that as traditional markets struggle and inflation keeps rising, people will start looking for other places to put their money.
So they'll turn to crypto.
Maybe especially Bitcoin with its limited supply and, it's decentralized, so it's not controlled by any government.
Right. I've heard that argument before, that Bitcoin's like digital gold.
Exactly, a safe haven asset. But, gold has been around for centuries.
Yeah, Bitcoin's still a baby in comparison.
True, but its supporters say that makes it even better suited for today's world.
It's like this trade war is putting Bitcoin to the test. Will it hold up as a safe haven, or will it crash and burn?
We'll have to wait and see, but either way, it's going to be interesting. And remember, what happens to Bitcoin tends to affect the rest of the crypto market too, especially the altcoins.
So if you're holding a bunch of different cryptos, this is not the time to be complacent.
Exactly. You need to be paying attention and maybe reassess how much risk you're comfortable with.
Okay, so we've got rising prices, a potential trade war, and a whole lot of uncertainty. Plus, we've got President Trump talking about Canada becoming the 51st state.
Yeah, that came out of left field.
What do you make of that?
It's probably just a negotiating tactic, trying to put pressure on Canada, but it just shows how complicated this whole situation is.
It's like a game of chess with incredibly high stakes.
And crypto investors are right there in the middle of it.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks and the potential benefits, but let's get down to brass tacks. What can investors actually do to protect themselves and maybe even profit from this whole mess?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll cover in the last part of our deep dive. We'll give you some concrete steps you can take to navigate this trade war and make sure your crypto portfolio comes out on top.
All right, so we've talked a lot about this trade war and how it could affect crypto, but let's get down to what our listeners can actually do. What are the key takeaways? What should they be doing right now?
The most important thing is don't freak out. Don't make any rash decisions based on fear or FOMO.
Yeah, that never ends well.
Right. Emotional decisions are usually bad decisions when it comes to investing.
So take a deep breath, step back, and try to look at the situation objectively. But does that mean just ignoring the risks?
Not at all. Like we've been talking about, this trade war has the potential to really shake things up in the crypto market. It's more about finding that balance, staying calm, but also being prepared.
Okay, so how do you do that? What are some practical things investors can do?
Well, first, take a look at your portfolio and your investment strategy. Does it still make sense given everything that's going on?
So like a checkup for your investments.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure they're still in line with your risk tolerance and your long-term goals.
Right. And if things have changed, either with your investments or your personal situation, then maybe it's time to adjust your strategy.
Exactly. The second thing is what we talked about earlier, stay informed. Don't just watch the price of Bitcoin go up and down. Actually try to understand what's driving those changes.
So read beyond just the headlines.
Right. Read analyses from people you trust and try to form your own opinion about what's going on.
Knowledge is power. Right.
Absolutely. And the third thing is think about diversifying your portfolio. If all your money's in crypto, maybe it's time to look at some other asset classes.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Even if that basket is Bitcoin.
Okay, so I've got diversification, staying informed, and staying calm. Those are all good things to keep in mind.
Definitely. And, here's something interesting to think about. We talked about how this trade war could actually make crypto more popular in the long run.
Right, the whole digital gold idea.
Exactly. But what if this is just the beginning? What if this is like the first step in a bigger shift away from traditional finance and towards things like crypto?
That's a pretty big what if.
It is, but it's something to consider. What if this trade war ends up accelerating the adoption of crypto?
So people who are already into crypto could end up being way ahead of the curve.
Exactly. It's definitely something to think about.
Well, this has been a pretty wild deep dive into trade wars in crypto.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground, and it's clear that there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now.
There is.
But there's also a lot of opportunity for people who are paying attention and who are prepared.
Absolutely. And always the key is to approach all of this with, a balanced perspective, a willingness to learn, and just a healthy dose of curiosity.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, happy investing. This has been The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.